So now first example that we have is, let's say if I have to solve for sine x equals to half. Now the range of the angle that I have to solve for is from 0 to 720 degrees. Now if you remember the general unit circle rule, it is A, S, T, and C. In the first quadrant, here all the ratios are positive. Here sine is positive, tan ratio is positive, and cos ratio is positive. So when you when you notice that there is a simple, like, the question like sine x equals to half, what I recommend is follow the first step, that is marking on the unit circle. Where is your possible position of the angle? So let's say here is the unit circle that I'm going to use to solve the questions. Now, since the ratio is positive here, so the ratio is positive, so the sine is going to be, the angle is going to be either in the first quadrant or in the second quadrant. So now the next step is to find out the base angle, like, or the principal angle. So if I can remind the triangle that we use, which is 30, 60, and 90 triangle. So opposite to 30 it is 1, opposite to 60 it is square root of 3, and hypotenuse is 2. So basically, if you notice, the sine 30 is half. So this base angle is actually 30 degrees. Here also it is 30 degrees. So now when you write on the angles, the possible angles that you measure, it is actually going to be, the first is 30 degrees and the next angle is 150. So 30 degrees, 150 degrees. Now if you take one entire rotation, there are only two angles. Now you're here 360. Now to get the next angle once again, so 30, because I have to go till 720. So I'll take 360 plus 30, which is 390. And next up is 360 here. So 360 plus 150, which is 510. So this is the basic measurement of these possible angles when I find out the sine ratios of these angles. So if I take sine 30, it is half, sine 150 half, sine 390 half, sine 510 half. So this is a basic example. Now let's go ahead towards the next example, a little more challenging one. Now question is, I have to solve for square root of 3 tan x plus 1 equals to 0. Now some questions what might seem is they seem difficult when you look at them, but if you just apply the general logic, which is just the modification step. So if I solve for it, here I can write down this as tan x is negative 1 over square root of 3 if I modify this equation. So now once again we got to use the unit circle. So let's say here is my unit circle now, or let's say you can just use the quadrants. Now since tan is negative here, now my angle is either in second quadrant or it will be in the fourth quadrant. So now the next step is to find out the base angle. So the base angle is, for what angle is tan? Tan is 1 over root 3. So that is nothing but 30 degrees, because if you look at this triangle, opposite over adjacent, that's here 30 degrees. So the base angle is always referred with the x-axis. So this is 30 degrees and this is 30 degrees. Now you start your measurement. Now here the range that is specified is negative 360 to positive 360. So you're going to go from 0 to 360 first. So 0 to 360. And then you go from 0 to negative 360. So when you go from 0 to 360, you get this possible angle, which is 150, the first angle. Then you go to the second angle, which is 330. And the next up is there any other angle between 0 and 360? No. Now, next go is clockwise. So when you go clockwise, your angle is taken negative. So the first angle that you encounter is this, which is negative 30 degrees. So this angle that you get is negative 30. And this angle from here to here is negative 210. Always remember, your each and every angle is measured from the principal x-axis, that is positive x-axis. So anytime you're measuring the angle, you got to go back always to the positive direction of x-axis, and then you start from there. So these are the four angles for which, if you find the tan ratio, it is going to be negative 1 over root 3. So now let's take the next example, which involves slight a bit higher skill calculations. Okay, so the third question is find out all the possible angles, that is between negative 360 to positive 360, whose measurement for which this inequality holds true. Now, in such case, once again, you make a little bit of adjustment. So it's 3 over 4. And then you solve for sine x, which is plus minus square root 3 over 2. So I'm going to take one case, which is sine x is square root of 3 over 2. And other is sine x is negative square root 3 over 2. So what we get is from here, we actually just look at the first thing is that look at the measurement where which quadrant is the angle is in. So first and second quadrant, because sine is positive ratio here, the base angle will be 60 degree if you refer the triangle. So my first measurement is going to be, I go from 0 to 360. So first angle is 60 degrees as you can see. Next angle is 120 degrees. So 120 degrees. Now then you go clockwise because there are no other angles here. So now you go clockwise to account this negative 360. So you go clockwise, which is negative 240 and negative 300. So these are the four angles for the positive root 3 over 2. And now you take the answers for negative root 3 over 2. So now once again, my angle can be third or fourth quadrant. Base angle is still 60. So now the angle from 0 to 360 you're going to get is 240 and 300. So 240 is this angle and 300 is this angle. Now if you go now from 0 to negative 360, which means you go clockwise, it is negative 60, which is this angle, and then negative 120. So these are the possible 8 possible solutions that you have got. So let's go to the one more question. Now here the question is slightly bit different. In what case you are given a little bit of tricky situation, which is to find out the possible value of x when it is 2 sine 2x plus 1 equals to 0. Now in such case, what we're going to do is basically if I just simplify this a little bit, which you get is negative half. So the value, a range of x value is 0 to 360. So basically now it's like a puzzle. You input x value and you double that, and for that sine ratio is negative half. So first thing is that what I'm going to do is I'm going to find out what is the double value. So if the range of x value is 0 to 360, first I'm going to find out what's the range of the 2x value. So if I could get the range of the 2x value, which is this part here, then I can just divide the answer by 2 to get the values of x. So first what you do is just write down the range of the 2x value, which is 0 to 720, which means that you're going to solve for first locating the quadrant. Now the quadrant is the sign is negative, which is going to be in the second and third and the fourth quadrant. ASTC, if you remember. So here's sine and cos, sine is negative in both the quadrants. So the first thing is that the base angle is 30 degrees. Here is 30 degrees. The base angle is always written with x-axis. Now I start the measurement. So the first measurement is the 210. So the 2x value that I got is 210. The next value is 330. 330. So these are the two angles from 0 to 360. Now you still don't have to stop because you got to take one more rotation. So now you got here, let's say this part, which is, I'm just going to redraw this. Yeah, so this part, which is 360 degree once you took this rotation, and then plus 210. So 360 plus 210 and 330 plus 210. 330 plus 360 basically. And then divide each answer by 2. So you get all the four possible answers. So these are some of the basic questions. Let's take one question that involves quadratic logic. Now in this question, when you see the question can have always like a good structure to in the form of quadratic, which you can just easily reduce to quadratic, or sometimes you have to make using the identity. So here in this case, you have been given a well-defined quadratic already in terms of sine x. So in this case, what you do is let sine x be u. So take the substitution first. So maybe when you take u, it is going to be 2u squared plus 3u plus 1 equals to 0. So when you factor this out, you get 2u squared plus 2u plus u plus 1 is 0. So if you factor this, 2u plus 1 plus 1u plus 1 equals to 0. So what we get is u is either negative half or u is either negative 1. Now basically the sine x is either negative half or sine x is either negative 1. So these are the two possible sine x values. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to solve for each of them. Sine x is negative half and sine x is negative 1 using the unit circle. So when you solve for the sine x is negative 1, you basically have only this position where it is negative 1 because that's along a unit circle. So this coordinate is 0, negative 1. And as you know, it is cos theta, sine theta as the coordinate. So sine theta is negative 1 at 270 degrees or 3 pi over 2. Just in case if you don't know how to convert from degrees to radian. So degrees to radian, you multiply by pi by 180. So multiply pi by 180 and radians to degree multiply by 180 over pi. So this is the first angle. The second angle is when you have sine x is negative half. So angle can be either in quadrant number 3 or 4. So the base angle is 30 degrees. So your measurement is either 210 or 330. So your final possible answer is either 7 pi by 6 or 11 pi by 6 in radians. So this is how you do the basic questions on solving trig equations.